You are a creator. You create your career, your business. You create a family. You create your future. On the Results Driven Life by Design broadcast, get ready to hear from people from all walks of life and how they overcame the odds to create a life led by purpose and vision. Here's your host, Kia Arian.
All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's broadcast. I always begin by reminding you that your skills, your experiences, and your talents have been given to you for a reason. No one else has that unique combination, and no one else has your voice. You have a message that the world needs to hear. So as you listen to today's show, I invite you to a greater vision for your life that resonates beyond what you do, but why you do it. So let's get inspired. On today's show, I am very excited to speak with the one and only Ben Settle, because I have known him and worked with him since 2017 or so about 7 years. And now for those who don't know Ben, he is the creator and author of Email Players, which is a monthly printed newsletter that gets mailed to subscribers all around the world. He is a master copywriter. He's a top expert on email marketing, an author, novelist, serial entrepreneur, and more. But those titles don't really do justice for him. For example, he's a copywriter who only writes copy for himself. He's an expert in email marketing, but he also has a deep understanding of business and brand development. So if you really want to understand what Ben does, subscribe to his daily emails. They're free. But today, what I want to do is I want to open the curtain on who Ben is behind that powerful brand that he has built. Now, this is not to say he's a totally different person. This isn't some Wizard of Oz where he's this big scary show with a lamb behind the curtain. Far from it, far from it. I have actually helped Ben create the covers for over 20 of his published books and counting. So I've seen how he's built this brand. I've gotten to know him as a client, and I've been privy to behind the scenes thought processes. And what I can say without a doubt that what he does truly captures the essence of creativity and what it means to be a creator. So today I'm going to ask him some questions that kind of gets behind how he got to this. He shares his story about his business journey in his materials. But we're going to go a little bit beyond that. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking. Ben, welcome. Thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you, Kia. That was probably the most elegant introduction anyone has ever done for me. So much appreciated.
Of course, of course. Well, there's more to it. So Ben, like I said, I know I've known your business journey. You started in MLM and you're sleeping in an office, and that's all in your books and your emails. But I want to get a little bit deeper, and you can share some of those stories if it happens. But let me ask this: through your whole entrepreneurial journey, what has been your proudest accomplishment?
I would say the proudest accomplishment is, and this is probably not very rational to a lot of people, but was just liberating myself from any kind of client work, anybody telling me what I have to do and having to filter my ideas through 17 idiots, that sort of thing. And basically becoming not just a publisher and not just a writer and all that, but becoming the author of my entire business. And by that, I mean, I talk about this in various books and everything. There's writers, there's people that write things, there are people that design things, right? Like the designs you do for my stuff. Like, I don't ever say, yeah, look what I designed. I mean, I swear, I don't even know how to use the preview app on my Macintosh. That's like much less Photoshop or the magic you and your team create. I don't know how to do it. But what I do know how to do is author and have the idea behind it. And then you guys give it like life. You guys like breathe life into it. And I'm very proud to have built a business and a world and what I call a marketing universe of offers. And now I'm adding whole businesses to this sort of universe. I guess you call it a multiverse if you want, and fiction and other things, all revolved around all the cool things I've always wanted to do ever since I was a child. Because I really do believe, and I've seen this, and I've read enough biographies. I've read a lot of business biographies. And people who I admire the most, the Walt Disneys, the Steve Jobs, and that, they tended to recreate something from their childhood. That's all they were doing. Like that's all Disney did was he recreated. Disney World is just the little Kansas town he grew up in. He wanted it back, right? And he created his animation studio because he wanted that sort of community. And say with Steve Jobs, he wanted like this culture that something had gotten lost. And when he was a kid, when his dad was teaching him about craftsmanship, and it like viscerally, I think, bothered him when he'd see like IBM, how much crap they were putting out and everything. And so he created this whole culture around that. Like that, I don't know what word I want to use. A word I've been using recently is like a synapse that just went off, and he built a whole thing around it. And that's what I'm most proud of. I've been able to do that. And I don't know. I do it for me. I don't do it for fame. I don't do it for applause. I do it because I think it's cool. I think it's fun. I think it's interesting. And that enthusiasm trickles down to a certain segment of my customers. And they're starting to do the same thing in their businesses, which I just think is the coolest thing in the world. So I'd say that's the proudest thing I can say so far.
Well, yes, to that. And I think we can just like end the show here, because what you just said there is really the essence of what so many entrepreneurs and people, it doesn't matter if you have your own business, they want to have the freedom to create what they want to create. Because like I agree with you, and I actually have it, as part of our agency and even my own personal value, that the ultimate human freedom is to be able to create the thing that in you should be created. So like there's something, words don't do it justice, but having the ability and the freedom and the courage to do that. And like you said, not care about, you're not doing it for other people, but doing it because it's what's in you that wants to come out. And I would add that when you follow that motivation that you create because it gives you joy, because it makes you happy, because it creates the life that you want, that automatically translates to creating joy in life and happiness for the people around you, whether starting your family, your clients, anybody who's listening to you. I
It
think
will also create great angst and anxiety. And if you do it right, outright hatred for you from people who are jealous. And maybe that's another motivation. I don't know. I find it more of an entertainment factor at this point, but you'll know you're doing it right by the ferocity of your enemies. I've really found that to be true. And so anyway, not really probably what anyone wants to hear, but if you really look at anyone who has done what we're talking about, they all have enemies. I don't care who you're talking about. Even Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers had enemies, people trying to bring him down in the media, accusing him of being a pedo and all this stuff. Like it doesn't matter what you do, but if you're doing something righteous, you're going to have people trying to bring you down. And that's just the result of it. And that becomes part of what you're creating too, which I don't know where I'm going with this, but it just seemed worth bringing up.
Yeah. And I think you are one of the only few people who really explains that reality, that truth in any way that makes sense, but also you also provide ways to, here's how you use it. And you have an example that you've shared before in your newsletter, in your emails, where you talk about the martial arts that you practice. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it. Tell me how it's
It's just Wing Chun.
Wing
It's one of the
Chun,
Wing
right?
Chun. Yeah, yeah.
Wing Chun. So you had this principle that you explained of force that's coming at you, that if you try to resist the force, that it's more work. It can, it could crush you, it could kill you, it can injure you. But if you use that force that's coming towards you, and you let it work with it, or let it pass through you, it can actually be used to defeat the enemy or to lift you up. And that always stuck with me. And actually, you'll probably be interested to hear this. I actually use that principle for my son, who's 12. And at school, I would tell him that if people come at him with insults or try to put him down, to rather than resist that force, go with the force. And I think you use an example of a punch coming at you. Take it, use it, so that it goes through you. It takes the force out of it, and then they're not going to do it again. And he's actually stuck to that, and it's helped him in school.
Oh, that's cool. Well, it's called, the official way I heard it. This isn't like official, like Cantonese or anything, but the way I heard it was you receive what comes, you follow what leaves, right? And The best analogy I heard of this, and this all applies to what we're talking about here, like in business, design, whatever, branding, is imagine like, because most people can at least imagine like a baseball game, and they watch a baseball game and someone hits a shot right at the third baseman, right? That's the hot corner of the infield. Anyone who's played third base knows exactly what I'm talking about. That people could lose an eye playing third base, right? And now let's say that happens. Well, the third baseman can, just stand there and let the ball hit him. Obviously, that's not good. He could just put his mitt out and catch it, and that stops the force, but he's not probably going to do much. He's not going to probably have time to throw the guy out or anything. Or you do like what the pros do. They kind of receive the ball into their mitt, and in one motion, they receive it, and they use that force to throw the ball faster, more than they would than if they just caught it and threw it. And that's the principle. Like, you take all this stuff that comes at you in life, and believe me, there's a lot that comes at you in life and in business, and it's only going to get worse. With the economy and all this. I mean, I don't think people have any clue what's coming down the pike here. Maybe I'm a doom pillar, but I really do think it's going to get crazy. And I tell you, all this stuff is an opportunity. It is just a shot down the third base. You can try to dodge it. Good luck. Maybe you will. Of course, you're not going to throw anybody out. You're not going to score any runs. You're not going to stop anyone from scoring. You could just stand there and just catch it and then just hold it up, do nothing with it. Or you can receive it and throw it. And that, I'm telling you, that principle applies to so much stuff. It's very cool that your 12-year-old is using it. And I wish somebody had taught me with 12. I had to learn the hard way. At 12, I was the guy who just sat there, hoped it didn't hit me in the eye. So I know how to use this stuff.
Exactly. Well, I think that's a really important, the way the conversation started in this principle is really important for anyone who really wants to have the courage to do the thing that they feel called to do, or at least just makes them happy, right? Brings them joy. So it doesn't have to be some save the world type of purpose, but this is what I want to do. This is what is in me to do. So it takes courage to do that because, like you said, you're going to come up with a lot of resistance, and that resistance is energy used to propel you forward if you know how to use that. And you capture a flavor of that in your Copy Trolls book. So I think, and I say a flavor of it because, the context is copy and client or people who follow you and kind of come against you. So, and using it to create effective copy, that's the context, but it has such a wider application.
Yeah, it really does. And, I was thinking about, when you were talking about that, I was thinking of Arnold Schwarzenegger's newest book, Be Useful. Now, I'm not a self-help book kind of guy, but when the great Dan Kennedy recommends a book, you don't argue with it. You don't give him any back talk. You don't give him any lip. You just get the book and you read it, which I did. And I got to tell you, that is a really good book. But he was talking about how, like, the best way to get him to motivate him, or to the point where he seeks it out, is to tell him he can't do something. Right. Now that's like, everyone has a naysayers. Everyone has something. You can't do this. You can't do that. The guru in my niche says that doesn't work. Don't try that. That's crazy. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, you hear it all the time. If I listened to these idiots, kid, you wouldn't even be designing stuff for me, because I've been like, well, it just has to be a plain PDF, printed out, put into an ugly binder. Right. There be none of this stuff. Right. I mean, I've had people like lecture me on this, like, oh, you're ruining it. You're not doing it right. So-and-so said, I don't care what these people say. I do what I think is cool, what I think is fun. I want people to have an experience when they buy one of my things, and not just the experience of paying me, obviously. But that could be a fun experience for people too, when they're buying something they really want. But it's like, it's kind of like the anticipation phase of it, right? If you remember when you were a kid, and a lot of people can remember this, they were a kid and it's Christmas time and it's 2 weeks before Christmas, and there's all these presents wrapped under the tree, and there's like 5 or 6 of them have their name on it, and they sit there for 2 weeks shaking the thing, looking at the thing, examining the thing, measuring the thing, whatever, trying to figure out what they just got. And that anticipation, those are the 2 best weeks of the year when you're a kid. But as soon as those presents are opened, it all goes away. You forget. There's no more fun. It's like, yeah, okay, that was a fun toy, and now you're waiting for your birthday or whatever. And like, I bring that up because that to me is an example of an experience of buying there's a buying experience. I think there's a big part of that is the visual side of it. The side, it hits that, what I call design response marketing, which is just some like phrase I kind of invented because I couldn't verbalize this any other way, where it's you cannot track it. There's no spreadsheet for it. There's no Google Analytics for it. There's none of that. There's none of the stuff that all the marketers who like to pretend like they test everything when they really don't. Even if they do, it's not statistically relevant data talk about. And I think this intangible side of things is so much more powerful, way more powerful than all the strict marketing. So I'm big, by the way, I'm a big fan of direct response marketing. I am a direct response marketing like purist. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, this intangible emotional side that Gene Schwartz used to talk about in his breakthrough advertising book, the identification with you, with what you sell, where he is selling something, I don't know what it is, I'm just going to add it to the cart and buy it, right? And I know it's going to be cool because the last two things she sent me were so cool. And that's kind of what I'm always trying to do. How can I give a better experience? And it's not necessarily about the thing being sold, whatever it is. That's part of it. The benefits are a part of it. But there's a process and experience of buying, of service, of what happens after. I mean, it can go on. I could go on and on and on about that. I probably will one day do a whole book about this. It's very powerful.
Well, I would say that that was at least partially captured in Marketeur, that whole intangible of that, the whole energy of creating from within that you can't wrap your head, you can't wrap your arms around to catch it and measure it. So what you said is exactly right. You can show it, you can give examples, and there's some ideas in that book that are exactly right that don't sit well. Things like it's perfection and imperfection. There's like two polarities that exist at the same time that creates a tension that people don't like. And so they ignore it and they go to the things that, like you said, they already know, they're tested, you can measure it. But the most powerful one is the ones that you really can't measure. You just ride with it like a big, big, powerful wave.
Well, I'll give one example of this because it's on my mind right now. I've been writing about this, and I bring it up once or twice a year. And so Walt Disney apparently was a very, very big procrastinator. Okay. Like a lot of people are, and people go, wow, really? Yeah, no, from what I understand, he was a procrastinator. And there was this interview I was listening to with Ray Bradbury, the author, the science fiction author. And Ray Bradbury said, and this is not something I stole from Walt. I was doing it. And then when I heard Walt Disney was doing it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to triple down on this. And that is, he said Walt Disney would surround his office with like the animation cells and the art and everything of his movies and shows and stuff like that. And it just motivated him, right? Like it motivated him to do more. And, you can't track that. You can't test that. There's no A/B split test for that. And so like in my business, and I've told you this, I mean, practically pretty much everything you've done for me, and like this comic book art I've had done for my novels and my comic book ads and all this, I got this stuff like in my fiction, my fiction covers and all. I've got this stuff plastered on my office walls. I'm looking at a bunch of them right now. I got so many that are now moving into the main residence. So down in the den, now all my stuff, in fact, I have a bunch of guests coming out next month between business people coming over and my mom and my stepdad. They're going to be indoctrinated with me, right? When just sitting down there in the den, because that's where the pull-out bed is. And I got to tell you, when I look at that stuff, or when I look at, like, for example, you did a graphic for our Contra cart thing, which, I'm not sure we're going to sell that or not, actually. But if we do, I think it's so cool looking that, like, I'm more motivated now to write the emails and sell it when it happens. Now, can somebody track that? Absolutely not. There's no way, to my knowledge, you can track enthusiasm. It's just there or it's not. And how many people are going around selling stuff and they're not really that enthusiastic about it? They got into a market because, oh, that's where the money is, or that's where so-and-so said to go. That's the niche I'm supposed to pick. They never think about what's viscerally inside that they want to do. Now, it's all business, so there has to be a market there. There has to be people willing to spend money. This isn't fantasy land. But people just don't do that. They just float around. And I really hope I think it's going to have to change soon, because I mean, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, but this like facade that's been going on the last few years in the online world is totally perpetuated by like YouTube and Twitter and all that, where people are they're just getting paid on views. So like the more clickbait they do, and they're not actually selling anything, they're not solving anyone's problems. There's no way this isn't going to collapse on itself. It has to. I mean, from my understanding, YouTube's like hemorrhaging money every year, and if it wasn't for Google's parent company or whatever, they'd be kind of screwed right now, because there's just nothing being created. What does he say in Wolf of Wall Street? It's a fugazi. It's just this big thing. None of this is going on. It's all celebrity. It's all makeshift, instant celebrity. And it's like this. There's this movie producer and writer. He didn't put his name in it. He was like on Reddit, so he's like hiding behind an avatar. But I believe him. Where he said we live in this weird time now where everyone's a celebrity, but nobody's got talent. Well, this is good news for the rest of us who actually have something to say. And I assume everyone listening to this has something to say, right? I'm not talking to the broccoli heads right now who just cold direct pitch everybody through Twitter or whatever. I'm talking about actual people with actual things to sell. This is an opportunity coming up. It's absolutely an opportunity because this whole market's going to reset itself, just like it did after the dot-com crash in 2000, just like it did in the mid 2000s when Google slapped everyone, just like it happened when the 2009 crash happened. And we got a big one coming up because of all this ridiculous AI stuff, huge AI bubble. I mean, I'm sure the two of us could go on and on about that for a long time, but it's all bubble. It's all going to pop. And there's going to be tremendous opportunity for people who look at business the way we're talking about here as an experience, doing the right things, not chasing a bunch of nonsense, coming at it where you're doing things you think are cool and you want that enthusiasm to just trickle down to your customers and clients. And it will, because they're not getting that right now. They are getting no substance right now. Right now, they are subsisting on Pizza Hut and soda in a red plastic cup. They are unhealthy. And I'm telling you, at the end of the day, when all these people are sick and their businesses are just dead and they have nowhere to go, your customers have no one to buy from because all the people they were buying from, they find out were just it was just a charade. You could be the one standing there ready to serve them. So I don't know. I've been thinking about this a lot because it's just so obvious to me. And I don't see many people talking about it, but that's what I really believe is on the horizon.
Yeah. And you're right. There's one side of it where, we're not trying to be like these doomsayers and people get deaf to that message. But on the other side, I like the allegory you use with the food, like they're subsisting on pizza and chips and sugar. Yeah. And they're getting these highs thinking that, oh, life is so good. But on the inside, it's rotting. And just as hard as it is to accept that you're eating like crap, you're destroying your health, let's make a change. I think it's a challenge for some people to make that change. But what is that change? So on the other side of this metaphor, what does it look like to make that change from this facade, like you said, from this nothing being created? I think it's going in and accepting that you have something to create, that you're a creator. It comes natural to some people. It came natural to you, which I want to ask. I have another question about that in a minute. Be having the courage to do things where people are like, are you stupid? Why are you doing this? Having the courage to say, no, this is what I want to create. And having the resilience to not give up. And those are hard things. Those are as hard as, going from eating potato chips to eating celery and carrots sometimes to get you back into shape. And then you've got AI and all the social media that's pressuring you to be this like fake person. So I think that's, I agree with you, and sort of restating what you're saying in that. Let me ask you this. There are people who realize that change needs to happen. There are those who are just miserable. They don't realize it yet. And there are those who are they think that life is great and great, good for them. Continue living your great life. But for those who just know that there needs to be a shift that happens and they don't know where or how, can you relate, like what shift happened for you? Like, can you recall a time where something shifted for you and you're like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. And this is what I'm going to create and move on. Can you like pinpoint that time and tell us about it?
Well, I mean, I can't think of specific pinpoint in time. It was just a bunch of failures.
Okay.
But I can say I kind of got on track to make whatever I did create make money and work, and kind of led me down to where I'm at today in a lot of ways. And I got into this business in 2002, and I was just a copywriter. Right? I didn't really think of anything else. I had this very small email list, maybe a couple hundred people. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't very much. I didn't sell to it. I didn't do any of the things I would like tell my younger self now to do. I was just like, trying to get clients and eke my way out of debt, that sort of thing. And what really my turning point, there are actually two, and they both happened in the same year. Actually three that kind of happened in the same year. And one was a course I bought from Gary Bencivenga. It's his farewell DVDs. If you know who Gary Bencivenga is, he's pretty much considered universally the world's greatest living copywriter. He's not in the game anymore. He's been out of the game, I think, for 20 years now. But now he owns an olive oil company, and it's just great olive oil. I mean, the dude is just, he's all about just why not the best? It's like his whole philosophy. Anyway, that course definitely got me thinking differently about my craft of copywriting. Because at the end of the day, I think being a craftsman is where people should focus. Can't just become excellent at what you do. You'll never be perfect, right? But you got to kind of take what James Cameron said, the film director, when he was asked about, are you a perfectionist? And he says, no, I'm not a perfectionist. I'm just the greatest. I just try to make things great. I don't know how to make things perfect. And I think people have watched his movies, which, he's had some of the highest grossing movies ever. A couple of them I don't really like all that much, but it doesn't matter what I think. Point is, you can't take away the guy's success. And I think that was a great thing. So the second that happened, a few months after that, is Ken McCarthy had one of his system seminars that year. This was 2008. And there was a talk there by this guy, Chun. And I think Chun is just brilliant. And I think he's one of those underrated marketing minds on the planet. And he talked about the importance of consumption, how everybody's good at attraction. Everybody thinks they're good at conversion, but nobody does anything after that. The consumption part is pretty much essentially what we've been talking about this whole time, the experience, right? Where the next sale is now made. You give them a good experience on product A, you don't even have to pitch product B. If you went in 1977 or whatever year Star Wars came out and you saw Star Wars and you liked it, you didn't need a trailer, you didn't need a sales pitch to get Empire Strikes Back tickets, because your experience, you consumed that first movie and you had a great experience. And now you probably watched everything else up until the awful Disney ones, at which point it all kind of fell apart. But that's neither here nor there. So that was like the second thing, that kind of the cog that fell in the machine. And the third thing was later that year, I was introduced to, not introduced to him, I'd been reading his stuff for years, but I bought a very expensive course from Matt Fury, who I think is the undisputed king of email to this day. And that guy, I mean, I even sent him a testimonial. I said, dude, if it weren't for you, I'd be pumping gas for a living or something. And I started combining all these sort of things together. And now here's the whole secret. I bring all this up. This is all preamble for this. Here's the secret to the whole game. And I don't care where you're at now. I don't care if you've been gorging on chips and candy and you're inflamed and you're tired all the time, obviously figuratively speaking here, or maybe also literally, whatever. But this is the whole game. This is the change to make. You mentioned a change. Here's the change. Okay. And this is going to seem so infantile probably to most of the people listening to this, but if you're not doing it, and you're not doing it aggressively, and you're not doing it as a way of business, just your philosophy of business, I don't know what to tell you. You're going to be, I'm telling you, you're going to, if you're online at least. Now, this does not apply if you're not online. It applies, but not in the same way that I'm going to talk about. That is, and this is direct response. I don't even want to call it 101. It's like direct response 0.5. I mean, it's as old as the Sears catalog, and that nobody does it except very smart marketers and companies like Amazon and Costco and other places. And that is this: all roads lead to the email list. In other words, and I mean, I'm telling you, this sounds infantile, but how many people are out there selling on social media, selling on all these platforms they have no control over? to an audience that's just kind of there. And maybe they're making sales, and maybe they're making good sales until it doesn't work anymore, until it's taken away. But if you just look at everything out there, all these medias out there, social media especially, YouTube, whatever it is, use those to build those platforms you don't control, to build your email list, which you do control, you own. It's an actual asset that you own and control. Your intellectual property, I think. I don't know if it's technically intellectual property, but it's definitely yours. And start taking this attitude that all roads lead to the list. Use these platforms while you can, especially if you have a big following. There are people, I'm telling you, with 200,000 followers on social media, and they're still bitching about how they don't know how to make money. It's like, dude, build a list. You know, a list of 1,000 engaged subscribers is more valuable than a social media audience of 100,000 non-engaged subscribers, who are probably half of them are bots, right? Or they're just they may never see anything you say anyway. All roads lead to the list. That's my whole point. So and this brings me back full circle to that system seminar I talked about, where Ken McCarthy was talking to Lloyd Irvin, who's another just brilliant marketer. And they were on stage, and there was a section just for newbies. And by the way, I did not attend the seminar. I just wrote the bullets to sell the CDs. That's how I know this stuff. He hired me to write the bullets, and I'm really grateful for that. And it was for newbies. And now this is 2008, when social media was still kind of new, right? Now everybody takes it for granted, but back then it was a little bit, nobody really knew how to use this. They still don't technically, but they were asking, so what do you guys think of Web 2.0? Remember the term Web 2.0? Mm-hmm. Thank God that was just like out the door, because it's just dumb. It's like, it's not anything. But they said, what do you do with Web 2.0, Ken? And he goes, you can use Tumblr or whatever you're using. I mean, Live Journal, whatever people were using back then. MySpace was still a thing back then. Facebook, Twitter, whatever. You could use all of those things, and you should. But just realize at the end of the day, and nothing has changed with what he said here. In fact, I think it's even more so now. The vast majority of money on the internet, in the direct response world at least, is you have an opt-in page, you send a daily email to a sales page every day, and then you sell those buyers something else. That's it. That's the funnel. There's your eating plan. I'm telling you, that's the diet right there. Switch out from all the crap food, do that, and you will be much healthier. Your business will be much stronger. You can start doing it today if you want. It's just a different way of thinking. From now on, the email list, build that. Back that list up every day. Do not trust that your autoresponder company will not cancel you, because they might. And I say this as a precaution to everybody at this point. I don't care where you are on the political spectrum. Trust me. I'm telling you, I own an ESP. I can tell you, I know the games that are played out there. It's why we created our own. We didn't want to be at that mercy of that. And I can tell you, back that thing up, mail it every day, an offer, and when they buy something, you sell them something else. I'm not telling you what to sell. I'm not telling you how to sell it. I don't care if it's physical, digital, it doesn't matter. Just keep doing that, and do that day after day after day. You will grow a very strong, very stable, very secure business that can absolutely withstand whatever crap comes our way in the future. I can practically guarantee you that.
Yeah. And you're right. It might sound infantile or basic, and maybe that's why people don't take it seriously. But what I found working with, I still work with clients and talking to them, it's really just some mindset junk that why they don't do that. The idea of owning your own list of prospective buyers, i.e. your email list, somehow continues to get lost on people. And I dispense that regularly. Get a database of the people who are contacting you. So it's even though it sounds easy, people still aren't doing it. And also the principle of, it's the direct response principle. Now you have them in your fold with your gates around them, and you can talk to them as much as you want, when you want, and sell to them and talk to them and build them up, whatever you want, however way you want to communicate with them. No one else can take them away from you now. Two very easy principles, but very powerful, which you explained. So I agree with that.
Well, it's funny because, and this is where social media has just addled the brains of people. And I don't know what spell is going on out there. Okay. And I know I'm sounding like the old man telling people to get off the lawn. And you know what? I am the old man telling people to get off the lawn. And the people I'm telling to get off the lawn are these people saying nobody reads email anymore. And it's almost always, not always. There's some boomers saying this nonsense too, but it's mostly the Zoomers out there. These are the guys who have not had to work for any success. They just got on social media, had a personality, and that's fine. I mean, actually, I think that's really cool. They're able to do that. We weren't able to do that in 2002. There was no social media, but they don't have businesses. What they have is an audience. They have a social media account, and if it's taken away, that's it. It's done. Now, here's the thing about email. There is a site called Study Finds. Okay, now I don't know how accurate this site is, so don't. I'm not using this as. I mean, to me, it's about probably as reliable as Wikipedia. Okay, so it probably gets the basics right. And according to Study Finds, the average person has 500 is on 500 lists and has 2 email addresses. Now, 500 lists seems like a lot, but if you think about it, if you're just getting put on a list every time you buy something, it's probably realistic. Most of them are not getting mailed by 500 people. But to say nobody's using email is just absurd. Right now, most people are congregating on social media, probably TikTok, right? Those are not the people that you want as buyers. I'm telling you, TikTok, there's a thing we call TikTok brain for a reason, right? These are not buyers. These are, I don't know what you call them, but they're not buyers, right? Not yet. Now, maybe they will be. But if you're going to do what the late great Gary Halbert said to do, which I think is very good advice that he gave like back in the 80s or 90s, sell to players with money. Okay, now that means just focus on the people who are buying stuff. Don't focus on people who aren't. And I'll tell you, I'm not trying to be anti-Zoomer here, but it's funny because I just heard this. There was a news story on MSN like 3 days ago, so it's on my mind. MSN's a news site where they said 42% of the surveyed Zoomers said it was okay to do a chargeback, even if the product was delivered and it did what it said. But like they have somehow they have this rationalization hamster that just kind of told them it's okay. Think about that. Think of like, why would you sell to people like that or anybody who's not really an engaged person? And the way to get them engaged is, in my opinion, okay, biased as I am for many reasons, I admit that, is to get them on an email list, mail it every day, something interesting, something cool something you find interesting that's going to be relevant to them. You're in their world. They're coming into your world. You make an offer. It doesn't have to be shoved down their throat. It can be very passive in some cases, but you always want to give them something to do. And you just do that day after day after day. And I got to tell you, I've lost count how many people will sit there and say they don't have time and all that. Well, guess what? Now it is Monday, what is it, July 15th, right? Mm-hmm. And Trump was just shot.
Yes.
Okay. He was just shot. What was it, yesterday or was it Saturday? Okay, so 2 days ago, Trump was shot. I'm losing track of time. Mm-hmm. And this guy, 3 hours later, had sent an email to his list. Okay, so I don't want to hear, I got no time, I can't do it. Look, this dude literally got shot in the ear, had his ear shot off or whatever, the top of his ear. He still sent that daily email out to his list. Okay, so there is time. And if somebody's spending all day posting on social media, you totally have time. And in fact, you could probably take one of these posts you're doing anywhere on social media and just turn it into an email. And, instead of, I don't know what you're doing on social media, but use the posts on social media to drive people to your email list. Bribe the hell out of them to get on your email list. You'll start building a list. You can start mailing them. You can start selling them in a way where you control the front to end process. You can now put them in a funnel. If you have a funnel, don't worry if you don't have a funnel, because I just gave you the whole funnel. Opt-in, buyer. Okay, that's it. That's the only funnel you got to start with. Opt-in page, sell them something. Now they're on a buyer's list, right? And just get there and you'll see further. But really, it really is this simple. And then you start applying what we're talking about. Start applying this thing. Okay, what can I do for them? How can I give them a great experience? What can I do that I think is cool that's going to make their experience dealing with me? What the great Vance Morris, who used to work at Disney, and he does a whole course on just service. It's absolutely amazing. Give them the wow experience. What can you do? It's different for everyone. I can tell you right now, we're having 2 team meetings at my house next month for 2 different companies. I have a software business and a business where we coach people on how to trade options. And both teams are coming out here at different days. And this is absolutely an exercise we're all going to go through. We're gonna, ourselves. Like I apply this to my own. I'm always thinking, what can I do to up the experience, to give them a good? It doesn't mean more content necessarily. It doesn't even have to be quote value. But what can you do to make their experience just wow? There's no way I'm never going to buy from this person again. I don't even want to. I don't care about pricing. I don't care. This is my person. I just want whatever it is you sell. But it starts with that basic, get them on a list and start mailing it. And I'll tell you, once you start doing this, this whole interview is a business model. I'm convinced I just given a business plan away here, kid. And that's what I would do.
So speaking of the generational differences and people's brains are getting wired, and we talk the idea of sending the email, the digital, and we have the print. Tell me what you think, and I have my thoughts about it, but I'm finding my generational gap, like with my kids. I have a 19-year-old daughter, and I already said my son is 12, almost 13. I'm feeling the generational gap of how they process information, how they think on the world, and how I process and think about the world. And I'm seeing how it's, my influence to my children is, it's still there, but they're going to have their own thoughts and ideas. The whole going to just digital, right? We've talked about the whole, they work for audiences. My daughter actually has a friend who she makes almost $1,000 a day on TikTok videos. And all she does, I kid you not, she gets on TikTok, has her audience, and they have this thing where they pay, like gift a gift, give a gift. She's like, that's great. Thank you, so-and-so. Yeah, so-and-so just donated $10. So-and-so just gifted $100. That's all she does for 30 minutes, and she makes $1,000 a day. So there's no appetite to work harder for that, right? They're filling themselves up. But anyway, my point being that they have this sense of everything online, everything social media, moving away from the slower paced print book, that consumption being so fast that reading books or taking the time to go through these things is just starting to it's not, I'm finding it's not there. Would you agree, or have you seen that? Or are people still, the generation now who's like maybe in their 20s and 30s, they're not doing the books the slower, they want the fast, quick, moving quickly? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on this. And, these younger generations are kind of screwed. I can tell you. And I'm not trying, look, I'm not saying that it's hopeless. You can't, we're approaching Idiocracy at this point, the movie. Like, it's almost like, people used to joke about, no, it really is becoming Idiocracy. They don't even speak correctly, right? They all have the same accent now, no matter where they live. It is the definition of NPC. The people on who watch TikTok, right? Now, there's nothing you or I can do about that, right? There's nothing. There's just not, and nor it's not our job to pull a Sarah Connor and blow up TikTok or something. It's not gonna happen. There is, look, there's always going to be people who want physical, tangible products. So I'll give you. Well, first of all, I want to go back to something. I want to go back to something you said about the $1,000 a day. This is a very short-lived phenomenon, and I'm not the only one saying this. Even someone who I think is crazy, Madonna, thinks this. Okay, she was talking about how her daughter, who has done nothing to my knowledge, nothing at all, except be born to the right person. Okay, right. And I don't even know what she looks like, but assuming she's like attractive and everything. And she goes on Instagram and she has 2-3 million followers just throwing money at her. And she goes, this is a problem. She didn't have to work for that. Madonna, hate her or like her or whatever, she's worked her ass off. That could be a whole case study in how to keep changing your brand. Nobody does it better than her. I give her credit for that. But even she's saying there's something that cannot last, right? It works in good times where everyone has money. It really does. Like when everyone has money, everybody thinks they're a marketing guru, right? Because You just put something out. I mean, you have people selling $5 a month Substacks, and they think they're the second coming of Gary Halbert or something, right? It's not. And a lot of these people are like hemorrhaging now. Hemorrhaging. I hear, and I know they are, because I hear from people who know what they're doing, and they're having problems right now, right? Because they've got sucked in a little bit too much into the facade that we've been talking about. I refuse to. I have stubbornly refused it. Now, I will use these two. I don't use TikTok. Actually, we tried to use TikTok with Berserker Mail, but we got kicked off in one day because of a video of me, actually, that my business partner put on there. And apparently I said something that was just against the rules. Honestly can't even imagine what it was. It was taken from a public talk, it wasn't like anything special. But so I wanted to cover that real quick, because I think that this is what you're seeing. The only platform I really spend any time on is Twitter. I actually like Twitter, but it is falling to the exact same forces. And in the last 2 weeks, I'd say last month, there's already been the rise and fall of two e-girls. Like, it just rose up from like zero to like hundreds of thousands of people. Now you don't hear about it, either one of them. Not really. One of them is the hot tall girl, whatever. And the other one was this other chick. She started saying racial stuff, and suddenly she got popular. You don't see them now. They're gone. They had a quick rise and fall. Mm-hmm. And I think you're going to start seeing that happen more, like birth pangs. Let's use the biblical birth pangs, like the end times, right? They start coming closer and closer together, and then bam. I think that's what we're seeing right now. And so, someone should tell $1,000 girl, look, build an email list. You have the audience. They're sending you money. You could probably get them on a list and sell them something that's going to last, when all this just, thanking people for being a simp works anymore. It doesn't. That works while people have money. It will not work. Do you think in the Great Depression, which I think we're about to approach something probably worse than that was in some ways, do you think they had people just throwing money at people? No. What they would do? Somebody's on their last nickel, because they just lost their job selling apples or whatever. And all they do is they'll go self-medicate, right? So they'll go to the movies or something. So in a way, I guess you could say they're doing that, but it's not sustainable. Like, they still had to go out and get a job, and they didn't keep doing that, or they would have died. And so I just think that you're going to see I'm not that bad, but I think it's going to be a form of that. So as far as the physical books, yes, I think they're going to come back in a big way, actually. I think there's a big move right now to preserve books, because they're being edited rapidly by publishing companies, like to the point where they're trying to edit, beloved authors, right? Because, they said something that's not now politically correct or not societally nice or whatever. And who's that guy, Roald Dahl? I forget how you say his name. For example, his books, so Stefani and I, we bought a whole bunch of them before they could, have eBay and stuff, so we could have them for our son. Because I don't want him to miss out on cool stuff just because somebody wanted to edit out something. And so you do have this thing going on, but at the end of the day, the players with money, I believe, will always be readers of physical things, tangible things. It's interesting. Digital stuff, it can be good. There are times where it makes sense. Like, if you're solving a really urgent problem, I think that could be great, actually. Like, if you're selling a $10 ebook that can solve a very painful problem for someone, I mean, there's no need for that to be mailed to them. That's great. But what does that do? Now that should become a sales pitch for something else. Every product should just be another step on a journey to buying something else from you, which goes back to what we were talking about. Sell them something. Now they bought something, sell them something else. This should never end. And if you do that, you don't need millions of people, right? You really don't. You can have a very small business that actually makes you lots of money. One of my business partners, I should say, Troy Broussard, he started this options trading coaching thing because he's just passionate. I mean, I've never seen anyone this passionate about something in my life. This dude is like a kid in a candy store. And, he sold, I don't know, like $80,000 worth of coaching to his list of like 1,500 people. Now, that's not a function of anything but raw passion, curating a list, even if it's a small list, having something of substance to sell them that's really going to benefit their lives, and then giving them a really cool experience, which is what we do once they're in there. And, I've never seen testimonials like this before. In fact, they're so good, we can't even use them. we have 3 lawyers we're working with to make sure our copy is compliant. We're like, we can't use any of our testimonials. They're too good. And so, but that's what you want, right? That's my whole point. If you're doing it right, that's the good problem to have. These people just running around Instagram with their, million people, but they don't actually have a business. They just have an audience on someone else's platform. It works until it doesn't. I'll take the person with the business who sells, physical books that solve a very urgent problem for someone, and then who keeps selling stuff after that and who has a relationship with them, than, someone who's just collecting $5 here and there from Sims, who just, too much money on their hands. I don't know what possesses people to pay for that, but it is what it is. But that's my thought on it.
Yeah, and you're right. I think I like that idea, that there's going to be a move back to the physical books, to think that just like your email list, something that you own, that no one's going to come and touch and take away and change and try to tell you differently or say differently. There's stuff that you put on your shelf and you go back to it over and over again without anybody like effing with it, right? So I agree with you on that. I think that's exactly right. And this message of stop thinking, this whole social media facade and wave of whatever that's happening. You said there's nothing you and I can do, but this message is what needs to continually be out there and put in front of people, so the people that are supposed to hear it will hear it. Like, I can hear that passion in your voice about it, and that's what it is. That's what we're called to do, is put that message out there, so that those who are, maybe they won't hear it from us, but they'll hear it from someone else who heard it from us, to really have a life and a business that is sustainable, that can't be taken away from you, because that is the definition of true freedom, is you own what you do and you create what you want, when you want, and how you want it. And, in the context of the business that you have and the work that you do and what you write and who you speak to, that's where we see it happen. And that's where the hard work happens. That's where you butt up against the mental junk of, I don't have time. I don't know what to write about. What are people going to think? Oh my gosh, they're going to cancel me. Like, you've got to get through that junk and have the resilience to stay focused on the bigger message of what it is. Let me ask you one more question. I know we kind of went over our time. I've really enjoyed hearing your thoughts in this interview, but I have one more question I want to ask. What continues to be a challenge for you and continues to test your resolve?
Right now, I would say what's challenging to me right now is being patient. Mm-hmm. See, I see a big crash coming. Not necessarily, I'm not saying, like, I'm just guessing on the depression. I mean, we're already kind of technically in a contraction and all this, but what I'm talking about is not economically, but I think the industry there's going to be another bust. Right. I think there's too many bubbles going on right now. We just talked about a big bubble with the social media stuff. It's a huge bubble. It's got to pop. Cannot sustain itself. AI is so ridiculously bubble. I mean, it is amazing how much money was thrown at AI. Now when I got back on Twitter a year and a half ago, everybody on there was saying, you're not going to make it if you're not using AI. You don't even need to write anymore. You could just say, hey, Ben, just get AI and say, hey, write this email in my voice. Because they think it's about the writing and they don't think it's about the humanity, right? They're not thinking this way. They live on the internet, right? They live on TikTok. Like, that's their whole existence.
Yes.
And now nobody that I'm seeing is really talking about it. It's just like, I think people know it's like not, I'm not saying it's got no use, but it's like saying a calculator is going to make it so you never have to go to the bank again or something. It doesn't really make sense. It's a tool and you should use it if you can, but not for creative stuff. You need humanity. So I have patience. I actually thought, I really did. Right now there's anybody who's running a subscription type business, from what almost everyone I've talked to, and this includes some pretty big names in our industry, would not want me naming them, so I won't. They're seeing their subscriptions in some cases, like, they're hemorrhaging right now. They really are. And they're like, man, everybody, like, there was this big subscription bubble. Now, unfortunately, I think I was part of that problem, Kia, in my corner of the internet, because I made it look easy to my list all these years. And it's not easy. It's the opposite of easy. And then I created a course, my book, El Bembo Press, which further did that, made it look easy, I think, even though I tried to tell people throughout it, it's very hard. And then I did another course called Subscription Biz with my business partner, and that brought a bunch of people, and now they're all out there. But I'm just one small little cog in this machine. Overall, everyone's been in the subscription game, from the small guy doing his Substack to car companies. I mean, everyone's got a subscription. There was the whole Netflix model that everybody thought they were going to pattern and all that. And people did. And the subscription bubble was huge. Everybody had so many subscriptions. They didn't even know they were paying for all this stuff because they had money. After COVID, they started flooding the market with money again and all that. And, you know, it just is what it is. And I thought this was going to happen 2 years ago. I was expecting it 2 years ago. Well, it's starting to happen. I can see it. And I'm like, you know, I hate to say it, but I'm kind of like giddy. I'm like, this is going to clear the field of all the junk. I was joking about how recently, it's probably not a joke for someone who's a parent of one of these people, but it's a joke to me, all right, where they're, you know, the current president was, you know, they're talking about making you automatically enrolled in the selective service, right? i.e., we got some wars coming up. We need to start drafting people like that. I'm pretty sure everybody could see the writing on the wall with that. And I'm like, you know, I wonder if once the draft comes in, if like half the crap out there is just going to disappear because they're all being drafted. Because it's all younger people doing this for the most part, right? Again, I don't want to joke about it because I know that's actually kind of a big deal, okay? But at the same time, this is part of the subscription bubble we're talking about. It's part of this whole creator bubble that we're seeing, where you have people who did not really work hard to get to a level of success that they saw very quickly. And, you know, that could be a problem. It really can be. I have a customer like that. I'm not going to name him, but he's gained a pretty notorious name in the email world in Australia. And he was like, Ben, I'm only 30 and I'm already doing $500,000 a year. He goes, I'm not even sure I can handle this. No, he'll be just fine. The fact that he even is that self-aware, he'll be fine. But there's a lot of people who are seeing success because of all these bubbles that were going around, because the ease of which you can kind of get leads right now with social media. That's why I say use it. They're going to find that when all the dust settles, they don't actually have any skills. And so they're going to have to go out and learn the hard way, which is good. This is a good thing for them, and it's a good thing for everyone else still around, because I think when all these bubbles have popped and they're gone, and we're going through another big bust industry-wide. Same thing happened during the dot-com bust. You had dumb money being thrown around. You had sock puppet level marketing working, right? Mm-hmm. But when you looked at the end of the day, it really wasn't working. There was nothing. It was all a facade, just like this was. And I think my big challenge is just the patience, because I thought 2 years ago, I was hoping it was going to happen. Now I'm well prepared. I'm well positioned. My business is fine. I'm doing good. But, you know, not everyone can say that. And I can just say, for those who are kind of seeing this pinch I'm talking about, lack of engagement, lack of clicks, lack of sales, what was working before isn't working. Suddenly the algorithms are not so favorable to you. You used to get a whole bunch of people looking at your stuff. Now they're not. Like, this is happening to a lot of people. I can just tell you, be patient, build a list, start mailing it every day with something interesting and cool and something they can buy. Sell those buyers something else and start building up the experience. And when it all comes down, you'll be standing and you will be on 2 legs instead of most people who are just be crawling around on like Anakin Skywalker after he had his limbs cut off when he's just like in the lava. Like, that's going to be most of these people, unfortunately. So that's I guess that's my challenge, is patience.
Well, I find that people who are visionaries, true visionaries, and they're led from within, they're led by a desire, a purpose for greater things. And for you, what I've heard is that deep desire for true freedom and autonomy, which I think drives a lot of people. Some have lost it. But when you're led by that bigger vision, patience is one of the things that, because you see it, but getting to it requires some patience in dealing with stuff. And so I think that's a great place to wrap up the conversation, that really having a bigger vision, but being patient with seeing that vision and being okay with the tension that is created while you're getting to that point. You've given the listeners really the blueprint, which you have in your books, in your emails, interviews that I've heard. And so I hope that the people will take heed and get ready for whatever changes are coming. Really appreciate your time, Ben. I thank you for the advice and the messages. I wanted to also add that you and I's background and a lot of what we talked about a little bit earlier in the conversation about the idea of creating and of really exercising your freedom and creating those things, we've captured it in that, well, partially at least. I wouldn't say, fully. I don't even it's ever fully able to capture, but in some part, in Marketeur book, even the cover of the book, you were talking about your house being full of everything that inspires you that you've created. The cover even captures some of that, and it's a terrific book. And the story of how you and I met is also in there too. So that's, if there's a favorite child, that would be one of my favorite books.
Well, I have an edit of that coming soon. I keep telling you about, but it'll look a little better because you created other stuff for me since.
Yes.
So
yes, we're adding those. That'd be awesome. Thank you so much. If there's anything else that you wanted to add, or I can say how to get in touch. bensettle.com. Subscribe to get on your daily email list. Any other way that they can stay connected with you?
No, because all roads lead to the email list. So I would say just go to bensettle. I will say this though, for your people, since they're going to probably have more interest in this than the average bear. So I have this book, Marketeur, we've just been talking about. It's very expensive, and it's definitely so far my most expensive book. But if you hear about it on this interview, and just let me know, because I'm going to have a sale for it at the time of this recording. I don't know if it'll already be passed or not, but it doesn't matter, because if you hear it on this interview and you want to buy it, just email me, get on my list, and just reply back to the welcome email and say, I heard you on Kia's podcast, and I'd like to buy your book, and I will send you a code to get a discount on it. So just get on my list, reply to the welcome email, not the confirmation email. For some reason, I don't know what's going on. People reply to the email saying you need to click this link to confirm, and then they reply back to it and say, okay. It's like, no, dude, that's like, are you like TikTok brain? I'm telling, it's weird. No, once you've opted in, you get the welcome email welcoming you. Reply to that, say, I would love to buy Marketeur, and I'll send you a link for a discount that I'm going to give my own list. So if it interests you, I mean, again, it's a very high price book. I'm not pushing anybody, but it is what it is.
Well, that is a great offer, and I hope that, and I'm sure people will take advantage of it, and I'll be sure to be. My listeners will not make that mistake.
I hope so.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ben, and thank you for everyone who's tuned in. Again, my name is Kia Arian, reminding you once again that your skills and talents have been given to you for a reason. There are people who stand to benefit from what you offer, and there are others who you are not called to help. Focus on the former group. They're waiting for you.
If you enjoyed this broadcast, subscribe to the show, connect with Kia on LinkedIn, and let her know what inspired you. This broadcast was brought to you by Zine, a marketing and brand development agency that helps attorneys, entrepreneurs, and professional service providers create raving clients who love them, stay with them, and tell others about them. Visit zinemarketing.com/newsletter to sign up and receive the Breathe Life newsletter, a print publication of Zine.